Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Carl, for the invitation. Carl, Pickleball community, leaders, dear leaders of other international federations, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to begin today not with a plan, but with a milestone. Because today, I can proudly announce that the Global Pickleball Federation has officially begun the Olympic recognition process. The application has been submitted. The fees have been paid. The journey is no longer an idea. It is a reality. We are taking pickleball from the backyards and gyms to the doorsteps of the Olympic Games. Let that sink in for a moment. For the first time in the history of our sport, pickleball is now moving forward on a formal pathway to join the Olympic family. This moment didn't happen by accident. It came through vision, through unity and hard work, through a growing consensus that if we want to go far, we must go together. But progress demands more than passion. It demands governance. As our sport grows, so does the responsibility we carry. The responsibility to protect the rules, to protect our athletes, to build a sport worthy of global respect. Governance is not about control. It's about serving and about clarity. It's the shield that protects the sport integrity and the bridge that invites investment, credibility, and opportunity. It's about creating an international rule of law for our beloved sport. That is why we created the Global Pickleball Federation. Let me briefly share how we got here. The GPF was born out of necessity, a response to a fragmented ecosystem where each region worked tirelessly, but too often in isolation. So a group of us from around the world, representing national federation, big and small, that included Pickleball Australia, Pickleball Canada, Mexico, Philippines, European federations, and USA Pickleball. We came together with one goal: to build a strong international federation that would serve the entire pickleball community. Players, coaches, referees, non-profits, for-profits, and passionate volunteers alike. A federation that respected national autonomy, but united us under shared standards, ethics, and visions. From that idea, the GPF was founded. A non-profit, independent, inclusive governing body dedicated to the global development of pickleball. Today, we proudly represent 67 members federations spanning every continent, and we will close 2025 with just under 100. We are grounded in 5 core commitments. Number 1, integrity of the game. Through fair rules, anti-doping compliance, and ethical standards. Number 2, equity and access, ensuring all regions, especially emerging ones, have a seat at the table. 3, competition pathways, supporting referees, coaches, and athletes across the borders. 4, neutrality and fairness, so every player and stakeholder compete under the same rules. And 5, a direct roadmap to Olympic recognition. These 5 commitments are designed to create one essential thing: certainty. And I emphasize the word certainty because, above all, I come from business. I understand how important certainty is for investors. Now, leading the GPF, I can assure you, we take our governance very seriously. We will work hard to bring every stakeholder into compliance, and will actively oppose any monopolies that threaten fairness in our sport. In just a short time, the GPF has moved quickly from planning to implementation, to delivering real tools and support to our country members. We have launched a strategic plan called Activate, available on our website, outlining exactly how we will achieve our goals. And here's what we already delivered: a standardized rule book for our members, a coaching endorsement program that raises the bar for training and certification, a library of written guides designed to help federations grow the sport in their countries. And coming next, we have a referee training and certification system and an equipment grant program to help expand pickleball around the world. And now, with this Olympic application, we move from aspiration to action. Over the next 4 years, we will finalize the recognition process, expand over 100 active federations, launch merit-based world and continental championships under the GPF governance, complete full compliance with the World Anti-Doping Agency Code, and deliver a world-class dossier for final review by the International Olympic Committee. We do this not for recognition, but for the players. Let me bring you back to a small concrete court in Mexico. A few months ago, I met a young girl named Aline. She was playing pickleball on chalk-lined pavements with a handmade paddle and a smile brighter than a trophy I ever seen. I asked her what she loved most about the game, and she said, it makes everyone equal. It's the one place we all get the same chance. And that is our mission. Not just make pickleball bigger, but make it accessible, fair, and unifying. So today, from this global stage, I call on all of you. Let's build a sport with structure. Let's build it with empathy. Let's build it with the future in mind. The door is open to the Olympics and the future as well. Now it's time to step in together. Thank you.
All right, Javier, I have a few questions, but we want to open up for the audience a few questions for Javier before I dig in. Would I have a couple questions? Well, welcome.
Thank you, Carl.
Congratulations. And,
Congratulations to you on your event. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you coming in. So I know it's been a journey.
It is, but I wouldn't miss it.
Right. So how many countries now have signed on with you?
We have right now 67, and we have around 53 on the pipeline.
Right. Now, as I was talking to her earlier, in regards to having countries with separate associations, is that a challenge to try to unify?
It is certainly a challenge. As the sport is growing, we need to find ways how to bring together all these groups that have done a magnificent job. We at this time, we cannot leave anyone outside because everybody has done a very important job. I was talking with my colleagues from the other international federations, and we agree on this. We have to respect the work that everybody is doing everywhere. And they might not be under the same umbrella and flag at this time, but we need to continue talking and working and finding ways into bringing everybody under one umbrella.
Right. Seymour and Marlon will speak tomorrow on the international growth, and obviously they've just merged association affiliations, which is public news. So in regards to that, so now there's 2. Before there were 3.
Yes.
So how do we get the 2 together? That's the next steps, right? On how we get this sport under one umbrella.
Absolutely. And just as we were talking, continue the conversation, finding ways on how to do it. I congratulate you because the merging is a very good news for the sport. And we just need to continue on finding ways how to bring everybody under one roof, Carl.
Right. Now, everybody always asks me, and I get several different answers from different people in regards to the criteria from the IOC and the Olympics. I mean, is it a pipe dream to look at 2028 as a demonstration sport, or is it 2032? Is there a timeline or criteria that has to be met?
Yes. Being very realistic, Carl, 2032, it's a difficult one, but we can do it. There's a long process in the recognition from the IOC that involves not only the International Federation, but 60 national federations. We have to have at least 60. And all of those 60 have to comply with a certain guidelines that are difficult to do. And so it's a process that takes a lot of work, a lot of resources, but the important thing is to start somewhere and start and going that way.
Right. Now we see sports. I mean, I think a lot of us seen breakdancing. We see sports. They said that's not even a sport. They're getting demonstration, and different sports are getting into the Olympics where you didn't even know they were sports. But pickleball seems like it's a legitimate sport, like tennis or like other sports, that seems a lot further ahead than some of the sports they've already admitted. I mean, do you think? I mean, that's a fair question. I mean, some have been already accepted a demonstration sport, I guess, and then not invited back. So you don't want that to happen.
That's a very good question. So I was last week in Lausanne, in Switzerland, doing the official application, and I learned a lot. And before I used to be very critical about the breakdancing and all of that, but when I listen to what the reasons behind doing it, I can understand. There's a lot of concern within the international committee, International Olympic Committee, about the demographics following the Olympic Games. They're concerned that the youth viewing is going down. So they're trying to, any kind of formula to see how they appeal to those young generations. And the idea to bring rap dancing was about that.
Right.
Is there something that we can do to appeal? Now, I think pickleball has the elements, the perfect elements, just like we were talking, Marlon Reef and I were talking, has the perfect elements to appeal to that young age. And so therefore we should be and will be a strong candidate for the Olympic movement.
Yeah, I think we've seen that. We talked earlier we've seen some of the demographics and some of the changes from 5 years ago when it was 50 plus was the dominant. Now it's down to 35, 37 age group, which has the bigger percentage. We see the youth, the next generation. We see the young kids playing everywhere now. So I think we got to get it into the schools, the middle schools, the high schools. Duper's doing a good job with the college, the college aspect of it. So I think that shift that's probably needed that will probably wake up the IOC a little bit to say, hey, it is a younger demographic.
It is, and you're raising another very important topic, which is a challenge, which is growth. I think that we have been very much complacent, just listening that in North America is growing at a very fast pace, which is true, and other parts of the world as well. But I think that the growth so far has been somehow organic, it's by the nature of the sport. But if we want to take pickleball to the next level, there has to be leadership. There has to be a strategy. There has to be programs set in place so that we can actually move forward. As we all know, there's challenges, like the cost of real estate is very expensive on cities. So how do you actually open more courts in those places where it's very expensive? And in emerging countries, it's even more challenging. Racket sports in those countries are usually perceived as an elite sport. And so it's difficult to go into a larger demographics of different socioeconomic areas if we don't have a program that is going to go there. So like you were saying, schools are very important because we attack at a very young age and we promote the sport at that time. So again, there are many things that we need to do, programs, to guarantee the growth in the world if we want to become a major sport throughout the world.
Right. And I think the younger generation, we saw Hercilio, we see these other countries with the youth out there playing, whether it's just having fun with wooden paddles and chalk on the floor, it's nothing sophisticated. That's the beauty of pickleball, is you can get out and play almost anywhere. People started in cul-de-sacs and they started on their streets and their blocks, before their courts were even built. People were out there playing in neighborhoods. So I think that's how I think not just in the U.S., but the other countries, we have to sort of look at that youth program and how do we get that elevation of pickleball into these other countries.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it has to be a well-defined program so that actually you have that opportunity. Otherwise, this is going to just be a trend that eventually is going to fade. So we need to make sure we build those programs that are going to stay there and really do the work. And for that is why I'm emphasizing about certainty. We need to create certainty in the industry because also investors, manufacturers require standardized rules. They want to make sure that their investments are going to be secure in a sport that is going to actually have certainty in the growth. Otherwise, this is going to be a trend and eventually it's going to fade. So we need to make sure we work on those areas.
Yeah, I think the issue, even with the pro situation, we got the PPA, the APP, you've got the different association with different rules, different guidelines, and that's what you said, the standardization of the rules of the sport.
Exactly.
And that's something that has to come together on the amateur and the pro level.
Right, and we don't have to invent the wheel, Carl, because there are many sports out there that are doing it right, and big cases like soccer and other racket sports, they're doing things for many years right. So let's learn, let's pick up what's good from other sports industries and put it into place for pickleball.
Right. Now we've seen other sports like racquetball and other sports that have, a lot of people were comparing pickleball. Well, it's going to be like racquetball. It's going to fade away. So to not fade away is bringing up the next generation and bring the schools and the youth into the point where there's a constant flow. It's not just, when the 50-plus quit playing, then there's got to be somebody else coming up. And the thing is, how do we get to the point? What's the biggest challenges now, sitting here? We talk about the aspect of the other countries, but the rules, how do we get USA Pickleball with UPA? And it's like there's several factions, the federations together, the pro situation together. Somehow we have to have a governing body.
Exactly, and there has to be a lot of convincing, speaking the right language. It is in the best interest for all stakeholders to have a unified rule of law. That way, everybody's going to grow. Right. Everybody will have more opportunity. But this is something that we, as an international federation, need to come together, set those standardized rules throughout the world, and everybody then agree to follow it. Just like any country, like the United States, when it was founded, It was a group of people that came together and agreed on following a constitution or a rule of law. That's exactly what we have to do in pickleball.
Right. And what about the situation with, I mean, I remember growing up, the Olympics was always amateur athletes, no pros allowed. If you're earning money, you can't play. Now that's changed, obviously, in bigger sports. And I know some of the issues with golf and some of the other sports with these players are getting paid so much now as pros, they don't want to even play the Olympics anymore. A lot of them still do, even though they're pros. But what's the guidelines now of pickleball as far as professional versus amateur? Is it focused on the grassroots growth? Would it come in initially as an amateur sport, or could it be a mix of amateur and pros, do you think?
Well, now it's so advanced that I think it has to be a mix of both. But we need to make sure we separate them both and be clear on that separation, because for the Olympic recognition, we need to implement a series of programs like the anti-doping and the match fixing into that. That is separate from the amateur world, and we need to make sure we keep the sport clean in every sense of the word. So there's challenges, and we need to work on the amateur and on the pro.
We talked about the anti-doping, and the gambling aspect is obviously a big thing, because right now online, you've got all the online betting, and you can bet on pickleball now. You know, in some aspect, they still haven't refined that. I know the PPA, they've been working and testing things, but tennis is very active. You know, there's issues there, and I'm sure that's what the Olympics are looking at as far as, but all the major sports, I mean, baseball, I mean,
absolutely,
you gamble on everything, right?
Absolutely, and in this sense, what you just mentioned is one of the main reasons we need to become Olympic sport, because it's going to force us to have good governance, good observance of the rules, and it's just going to be best for the sport. And so you're absolutely right.
Yeah, we talked, and Paul Olson is going to be talking tomorrow about the international governance. As one thing he says, how do we get the world under one umbrella with one set of rules, which is what you're talking about. Is there any other specifics that people, pickleball business people, owners, investors, so forth, can assist you with what needs to be done with the IOC to move this far forward? Absolutely,
and it's about engaging with us and committed with us into working for that system. For the manufacturers, it's very important to have an international standard of equipment that makes sense and that is aligned for them to make business. It becomes really a barrier if we start establishing monopolies within that area. So we need to make sure we break those monopolies in the benefit of all stakeholders.
Now, how do you work with the manufacturers? Because obviously that's a big issue that we talk about here. The paddle, the paddle issue. I mean, there's thousands of paddle companies now. Everybody's coming out with paddles and trying to figure out, one paddle's legal with UPA, APP has another standard, just like the rules. So we've got an issue there with the equipment.
Right. Well, and that's where the governance come in place. And then we need to become a moderator in the situation and bring these actors, stakeholders into the conversation. And the manufacturers are one of them, which are very important. And we have to create an international committee in the International Federation to oversees the international standards, and everybody agrees and follows those rules.
Right. So much like USA Pickleball has Carl Schmitz and their technology and governance area, and same thing, UPA has theirs, but we need to have one governing body of the equipment standards, right?
And there's going to be a possible certain standards for different areas of the sport. Right. But we need to do that in order to become a sport that is really investment attractive in that sense.
Right. So we got the anti-doping, we got the equipment governance and standards, bringing up the next generation. What other things are on your checklist of what has to be done, moving the path forward? And after your conversation, what's the next step?
Yes. So a competition is another very important one. We need to create a system that has a logic worldwide, that is connected, and that is aligned to, on one side, the Olympic, on the other one, on the overall International Federation governance. So that's one of them. But at this time right now, Carl, from the governance perspective, working with the national federation is very important. We need to help those organizations that doesn't have the resources to build a strong body organization to put it together. So the next 4 years, we have 4 years right now that we have to comply for the Olympic movement, and so we need to work on that.
So people like Hercilio and the foundation is working with people in other countries to help them. How's that work for? Does it come through sponsorship, through manufacturers, through donations?
Right.
How can the industry help you?
Very good question. And yes, through sponsorship, through endorsement, through engaging and being part of these programs. Hercilio mentions about his foundation in Peru. Well, we need to duplicate those in other countries. Mm-hmm. We need to find the sponsors who are going to help go to these countries and start pushing the growth of the sport.
Yeah, and we're seeing some of that. I'm seeing some of the manufacturers donating paddles, donating equipment to these other countries, which is great, and that's what needs to be done to move the ball.
Yeah, and involve local governments. That's very important. We go back to the challenges of finding the spaces to put pickleball courts, because again, the only way it's going to grow if we have more accessible spaces to play the sport. Otherwise, I have people in Mexico that watch the YouTube, they see the sport and they go, I love it. Where do I play?
Right.
Where can I play? Well, if we don't make it accessible, then that's not going to be possible.
Right, and there's the public facilities where they play for free, and then there's the indoor facilities.
Exactly.
And you know, I was looking at Mexico City. I was going to go there to Pollo and Pickle. Pollo and Pickle. The guys from Colombia went there. They opened up a chicken and pickle called Pollo and Pickle.
Right.
We're going to do a little fundraiser and an exhibition there. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It is.
It
is.
But one court. They only had one court.
Yeah, and this is where private mix with public. We need to find ways to make that connection so that private funds start going in and working with the public resources.
Right. So that's exciting news. And so any other steps that need to be done for the next stage? I mean, do you see it as a demonstration sport first, or would it be something they would say the sport is in, or they want to try?
Well,
would it be a tryout?
It depends on the perception of the IOC. If they perceive that the sport is well run, if they see that the sport is really connecting with all kinds of demographics throughout the world, then they want to push it. They were giving me last week an example of boxing. They pushed boxing into the Olympic in 6 months, a new federation. And so it's possible, but they have to perceive that this is a sport that is serious, that it's a grown-ups in terms of governance. So if they perceive that, then they're going to push for it. If we don't prove that, then it's going to take more time to do it.
Right. So they can make their decision whenever they feel it's right, not based on a timeline necessarily.
There's a timeline, but they're flexible based on what's, again, they're really concerned about connecting with demographics in the overall Olympic movement. Right. So if we prove to them that we have the right formula to be Olympic sport, they're going to support us.
Right. So they gave you an assignment. They gave you your homework assignment.
A lot of
yes, big list, a big laundry list of what has to be done. Right.
Absolutely.
Before you come back, they say, Javier, before you come back, you need to do
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So you got your work cut out for you. That's good.
For sure.
All right. But you took the first steps there.
The first step is there.
It's
and let me say this is not a victory for one person, one organization. This is a victory of all. Everybody that is here has done a great amount of work that has to put us in this situation. So I congratulate all of you who are out there, all manufacturers, all stakeholders, all the leaders of other organizations. Everybody is part of this moment, and everybody should be happy and glad about it.
Yeah, it's a growth. It's still a Wild West. We know that.
Yes.
We see. Look down at walk around down there. There's 80% of the people weren't here last year.
Yes.
They're all brand new.
Yes.
They're just, a lot of them haven't even played pickleball before, but they're in the pickleball business now.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's where we're still a baby.
Yes.
Walking.
Yes.
Maybe crawling. Getting ready to walk a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then start running. Right.
Absolutely.
That's the key.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's great insight. How about some questions? Any other questions, or did I cover a lot of it, or is everybody excited about it? Yes, ma'am. We'll get a microphone back to you here. Here.
Okay.
Yeah. Is the mic on? We can't hear you.
Sorry. My name's Leanne, Marsh, and I've come from Australia to this event, and I work with the University of Newcastle, and I've got two questions. Firstly, how can academic research help support you in this quest to become an Olympic sport? And secondly, how can I help, because my research is specifically about women, supporting women through social inclusion, particularly women over 45, so through the game of pickleball. I started playing last year myself, and I realised how great it was for women who may not have ever had the opportunity to play a team sport, particularly since they were in high school. So that's the area that I'm interested in, and how can I support?
Thank you, Liam, for coming from far away. Well, on the academic side of it, there's probably two areas that is very important: to have the support, the legal support, and the organizational support or advisor from an university in this process that we are going through, because we have to build an organization that complies with the Olympic movement. And so we need a lot of advice and involvement with the expert who know how to build this organization. So in that sense, it can be a great advisor in this. And on the other one, engage, volunteer. We have 12 committees within the GPF, and I go out there, Carl, inviting people from all over the world to participate, to volunteer. And it's very difficult because I understand that there's a volunteer work and a lot of people have to put a lot of time, but I know that there's a lot of people willing to do it. So my message is get engaged, get involved, reach out to us to see what committee might be perfect for your work with women, and that is going to help to create the programs within the organization. So my message to everybody is engage, get involved, just like any democracy in the world.
And speaking of Australia, we've got people from Canada building new facilities, China, India, a lot of international people here downstairs with products and up here as well. But I've been reading lately just the explosion in Asia. You know, but the growth there has been tremendous on the new statistics coming out of Asia. What countries are, say, either not further ahead, or, I mean, as far as the biggest growth areas? I mean, we know Australia's growing big, India's huge, China's coming on strong, but, I mean, you've talked to all these different countries, and we talked about several of them having, like, I think India has 3 or 4, maybe, federations.
Certainly, well, Japan is one, it's an important one, but there are other southeastern countries that are really doing a tremendous impact.
Vietnam, I heard.
Vietnam, Malaysia, they're doing incredible work. I know that Riv has spent a lot of time in Asia, and he knows about this growth in Asia. So there's many countries over there that, because it makes the sport, the attributes of the sport makes a lot of sense in those kind of cultures, and like in my country, in Peru, like Ercilio. So there's really a great opportunity over there.
Right. Yeah, South America, Asia. I haven't heard as much from Europe.
I spent some time over there this past months, Carl. It's incredible. It's becoming an addiction for the Europeans. A lot of padel players are beginning to discover pickleball, and they go and they don't come back. And so a lot of tennis facilities are also being transformed into pickleball. There's resistance like anywhere in the world, but it's happening because people are choosing to play pickleball.
Yeah, that's funny because we hear here how many pickleball players are now playing paddle. padel, because padel's, these new facilities, we've talked to a couple new facilities here that are all adding padel to the indoor pickleball facilities, so they see that as a coming sport. And we know at Racket X in Miami, tons and tons of padel players in certain areas.
I respect padel very much. They've done a great job, but there's a big difference. And the big difference is the investment cost to set up a court in padel than to pickleball. And that's a big barrier for a lot of markets. Even in Latin America countries where padel has penetrated, it's only on certain demographics and socioeconomic that they're able to do.
Right.
But on the massive demographic, it's very difficult because of the entry barrier is very high because of the cost.
So you don't see that as an intrusion or an objection?
No. I think that they can co-live. There's spaces there's a market for a niche for padel, just like there's tennis, and there's a huge market for pickleball.
Yeah, no, I agree. You have any other questions? Paul, in the back. Paul?
I'm coming, Paul. I'll meet you midway.
I don't mean to intrude too much in this. I do want you to just talk, if you would, a little bit, Javier, about what WADA is, because it hasn't been a factor for anti-doping, anti-drugging in pickleball, but I'm hearing about drugs in pickleball at the pro level already. And so we haven't had to address it, but kind of talk about why that's important to the IOC.
Not only important, it's critical, Paul. If pickleball wants to be an Olympic sport, it has to comply totally with WADA codes. They were telling me last week when I said with them, when there's always money involved in a sport, you need to have a drug testing. Because there's always a need or wanting to go around it. So that's one of the top
requirements that the IOC sees, and it makes logic because we want to keep sports clean. And so when there's money involved and as pickleball is growing in prize awards, the need for that is absolutely unnecessary.
And that's something you have to work with the PPA, APP, and those levels because they have to institute that in their pro level. They've got their own guidelines, their fines, certain, each tour has different examples. But the anti-doping, I don't know if anybody's ever tested for drugs in pickleball.
Good. One of the conversations that we were having is that a lot of private tours or organizations usually don't want an external observance, and they usually have their in-house testing because there's a lot of publicity that could be negative for that organization. So they tend to go to comply with guidelines inside the house. But it's important to have external observance. And they usually have a lot of inspections from WADA to make sure that they're complying. So in pickleball, I think we want to become open, and for PPA and other tours, it's going to be on their benefit to comply with all of this.
Right. Same thing with the gambling aspect.
Very same
hand in hand.
Exactly.
Right. No, we've seen. I've just seen recently in baseball, there's several players suspended for 60 days in major sports. We know the NFL, football. They do serious testing randomly, but whatever. But there's been a lot of suspensions coming down recently on specific drugs for enhancements and so forth. So
and like you say, the betting, the money. I'm concerned about also how prize awards have increased on the amateur level, and that's something that we need to deal and approach at some time, and that is why I was saying to separate the pros from the amateurs, if we want to comply with everything that the IOC requires.
And do you see with the college level, getting the college players, and would it be something where if the NCAA, they're working on that, there's certain colleges already giving pickleball scholarships, Duper's got a big college championships, most colleges now have club pickleball, so that level is younger and coming on strong. But the thing there is, obviously, there's an NCAA, another governing body involved. And now, how do they work with the Olympic structure?
Well, eventually they'll have to work with us because we have to align all those competition systems and make a logic out of it into the international arena. So they have to work with us. And I'm really happy and glad to see that the NCAA are putting pickleball. I play myself tennis in NCAA, and I know that structure or that system is going to help pickleball tremendously everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big growth. We've seen it in the next gen with the juniors and the middle school, now the college level, and then right into the pro or just the
Exactly.
amateur. So that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Any other questions? Or really? Oh, there we go. Right there. Jeff?
Not to combat that, but I'm just curious, as we're seeing collegiate tennis programs actually get shut down because of the growth of other sports or how those sports bring in more money, do you think the addition of pickleball into the collegiate sport world will succeed if tennis is being pushed out?
That's a very good question and an observation. And this is where we have to become creative. We have to be very innovative in ideas and solutions. Going back to what I was saying about the International Committee, the Olympic Committee, they're very worried about how are we going to fund the games in the future. So they're being very creative also in finding these new formulas. So to that point, we also need to work with these organizations in finding other options to help them and support them. But that's a very good question.
Yeah, that's the one thing with the college level, and I think a lot has to do with the athlete licensing deals. I mean, where they're looking at where the money's going into the universities and which sports are bringing the money back.
Right.
And that's
right.
where the money, and so a lot of the women's sports are going to get cut back. They're already arguing about the Title IX in the women's sports because they don't bring in as much revenue as the college basketball and the football,
Right.
where the big money comes in. And the other sports like tennis, as Jeff alluded to, and some of the minor sports could be left on the wayside if they can't support themselves.
I think we always have been like that.
Yeah.
Me as a tennis player and
Right, you've always been like
NCAA,
that.
we always face that. But yeah, that is why, as a governance, we have to get involved with that.
Yeah.
We have to find ways working together with these organizations to it's on our own benefit. That's how the sport is going to grow. So we need to find ways to get funds and resources from other places.
And how do you work strategic partnerships like with Duper and other organizations out there in order to help move the table with what they're doing, because they're already doing certain things in college and other sports?
It's difficult, it's challenging because there's a very fine line of conflict of interest. So we need to make sure we understand and set very strict rules on how are we going to use that funds and how their participation into this. Again, as a governance body, we need to make sure there's a fairness, that we are neutral in all of this. We have to find ways to break those monopolies. So it's a complicated thing, but we'll find a way to do it.
Right.